We will chant the two verses what we started last time. Verse number 11. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Ashochanan Ashochatsvam Pragyam Vadamscha Bhashase Gatasuna Agatasumscha Nanushocanti Panditaha Natve Vaham Jatu Nasam Natvam Neme Janadhipaha Nachaiva na Bhavishyamaha Sarve Vayamatah Param. So last class we got into the actual teaching of Bhagavad Gita. We started with these two verses which we just chanted. So the Bhagavad Gita starts with the 11th verse of the second chapter. So that is where Bhagavan Uvacha. So Bhagavan says, he tells Arjuna, don't grieve for something which need not be grieved for. Because the Panditas, the wise people, don't grieve for either the people who are dead nor for the people who are living. So it's a very powerful beginning which actually sets the tone for the teaching of the Bhagavad Gita. Because Bhagavad Gita is Moksha Shastra. It's a solution to all the problems. It is not a solution for small problems. Because if you take care of the large problem, then the smaller problems will be addressed on their own. So he starts with a statement that you should not grieve for things which need not be grieved for. And he talks about the wise people, the Panditas, who don't grieve for either the dead or the living. Or he puts it even in a more different way, those who have stopped breathing and those who have not yet stopped breathing. So that means it's only a matter of one breath. Who will be able to take the next breath? Nobody knows. So anytime anybody can have their last breath. So that is the statement Lord Krishna makes. So this sets the tone because it says to reach that state. So if you don't grieve, because death is the ultimate sorrow that we all face. So if we are not grieving for even death, then the other problems are not really big. So it is not difficult to handle other problems if you are able to take the cause for the maximum sorrow, which is death, without any problem. So if you want to reach that state, you have to become a Pandita. Now who is a Pandita? Pandita is one who has discovered himself. So basically he says, if you have to get over all the problems, you should understand your true self. So that is what moksha is all about. So once you understand what is the goal, so he has specified the goal. So that's why he tells Arjuna, you spoke like a wise man, but you are grieving over something which you should not grieve for. So that indicates that Arjuna was not aware of himself. So he was not a Pandita. So now Krishna is going to tell how to become a Pandita. So that is the whole teaching about. How all of us can become Panditas. Now if we go back, I think some of you have attended the Tattva Bodha class. Those who have not attended, they can go to the YouTube, my channel, and all the classes are uploaded there, because that is a basic text which helps us understand more about ourselves. So if we just revise what we have studied, in Tattva Bodha, to understand the self, there were 4 qualifications which were indicated. The 4 qualifications were discrimination, dispassion, then there is a 6-fold qualities you should have, and then something called mumukshutvam. So in other words, it is viveka, vairagya, sat. There are 6 qualities starting with sama, and you have the mumukshutvam. So mumukshutvam is the basic quality we should have, which is nothing but the desire to get moksha. To understand anything, we should first have the desire. If you want to study engineering, you should have desire to study engineering. If you want to become a doctor, you should have the desire to become a doctor. So here it says, if you want to have moksha, you should have the desire first to have the moksha. So that is the basic quality which you cannot teach, that it comes on its own. So this has to come from within, because without the desire you will not learn anything. Anything you want to learn, you should first have the desire. Otherwise, why should you learn something? So the first quality we should have is desire. Viveka, discrimination, vairagya, and 6 basic qualities, sat sampati. These can be developed. These can be learnt. But unless you have the desire, the whole purpose of studying Bhagavad Gita is out of academic interest. Somebody may say, okay, I just want to know what is Bhagavad Gita. Good, no problem, nothing wrong. But you are not going to get moksha by just going through the Bhagavad Gita. You can read the verses, you can, because in every Bhagavad Gita there is a meaning given. We can just read the meaning, oh, okay, this is what it says. But that is not going to give moksha. So first you should have the basic desire. And the stronger the desire, the more you will be able to put the effort to progress. So once you have the urge, then so in Tattva Bodha basically, it was what all is required was given. But how to achieve that was not given. So you should have these qualities, you should have these qualifications. That was specified. But how to acquire? See, basically mumukshutvam has to be there in you. Otherwise you will not have the urge to study. Once you have that, then the other qualification, discrimination, dispassion, and samadama, uparama, titiksha, consisting of the 6 qualities which can be developed by effort. So now in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is going to tell us how to develop these qualities. So that is why Bhagavad Gita is a step-by-step method to achieve moksha. So Lord Krishna is going to guide us, but he can say the effort has to come from us. So the first is the knowledge. So he says you have to become a Pandita. Who is a Pandita? Who has self-knowledge. So to acquire that knowledge, you have to study. Simple. For any knowledge to acquire, you have to study. So Similarly, the knowledge of the self you have to study. So gaining knowledge is, ultimately the goal is to gain self-knowledge. But gaining knowledge is only one part of it. Knowledge happens without any effort. For example, for any knowledge to happen, there are three things that are required. One is the object. The object can be in the form of some physical object. To have a knowledge of a physical object, you need first a medium to identify the object, which are the eyes. So there is a physical object in front of you. You need the eyes to look at the object, because if your eyes are closed, you cannot identify the object. Simple. Now, if you have eyes and you look at the object, can you gain knowledge of that object? No. The eyes are looking at it, but you may not know what it is unless it is backed with the mind. So three things have to be aligned: the object, the medium, and the mind. When these three are aligned, instantly knowledge happens. So suppose I look at any of you, say Murli. If I look at Murli just with my eyes, I may be looking through him, I may be looking at him, but I may not be identifying him because I am thinking of something else. My mind is focused on something else, but I am looking at him. Will that give me the knowledge of Murli? No. The moment my mind comes behind when it is focused on Murli and the mind is also focused, in an instant, yes, this is Murli. There is no effort required. In that instant, you know he is Murli, unless you don't know Murli at all. If I look at somebody else whom I don't know, it is not there in my mind. So I will not be able to identify that. Then I have to find out who is that person. But if already it is there in your mind, knowledge happens in an instant. You don't need any effort for knowledge. Now the same thing here, the knowledge we are looking at, it's not an external knowledge. For external knowledge, we need the sense organs we have to use the sense organs as the medium to understand. If you have to identify a sound, you use the ears. If you have to identify through smell, you use the nose. So you have, for external objects, you have the five sense organs. Now we are looking at the self. Now what is the medium we use? Here the medium is the Shastra. The Shastra helps us identify the self. The same mind is required, but through the Shastra you are able to identify the self. So that is how the knowledge of the self can be gained, because without Shastra we cannot. As simple as that. Whatever methods and means we try, we may not, or we will definitely not succeed to know the self. Because only in the Shastras it is discussed about the self. And knowledge is only very simple. Aham Brahmasmi. That one statement says everything. You are the total. So knowledge is not difficult to acquire. All the Shastras, any Upanishads you take, everything, even Krishna is going to say only that. You are that total. So knowledge is not difficult to gain. But the mind has to be, now for external object, when our mind is not focused, we don't identify the object. But when our mind is focused, immediately we are able to identify. But to see the self, the mind has to be very, very clear. And all our effort is to clear all the curtains that are in front of the mind. which prevents us from seeing the self. So the purification of the mind is the process which takes effort. Knowledge happens in an instant. Once your mind is purified, you will understand I am Brahmasmi. Now you can, okay, I am Brahmasmi. Yes, maybe I am the total, but I may not be also, I don't know. Because our mind is only focused on the body and the mind. We think we are only this. So we are not able to understand the self. So that ego, that I. Now, basically, there are two things which are required. One is called as now Krishna had started with Jnana Yoga. So he is going to, next almost 20 odd verses, he is going to talk about the nature of Atma. So that is Jnana Yoga. He is going to reveal the nature of the Atma. Then he is going to move on to the most important part, which is called as Karma Yoga. Action. Any action that we do, be it in terms of physical action, mental action, or vocal action, any of these actions, through this we do all our activities. So that it is activity oriented. Knowledge is not activity oriented. Karma Yoga is activity oriented. But how to use Karma Yoga? Karma Yoga is where you develop the attitude of because every act we do, I did this, I am doing this. So we always have this I. Once you realize that you are the total, it is not who is doing. So whatever activity you do, if you bring in the attitude of it is not me who is doing, it is happening through me, I am not the doer. When you do with that attitude, then it becomes Karma Yoga. And Karma Yoga is required to purify the mind. And the more you purify the mind, the more you will be able to see the self. So the whole process is purifying the mind, keeping in mind the goal. The goal is to realize the self. The self is the Atma, and you are that self. But to understand that, you need to purify your mind. And Karma Yoga is doing every activity with an attitude that I am not the doer. Very easily said, but the most difficult thing to do anything without bringing me is very, very difficult for all of us. So our attitude towards Bhagavad Gita is to ultimately reach that goal. If we are looking at only a academic way, we can read Bhagavad Gita, we can finish it in a couple of days. We can just read the verses and just read the meaning. Okay, this is what it says. Good, Bhagavad Gita. I have read Bhagavad Gita, it's very nice. It says so many things. Good. But if you want to attain that goal, there's a lot of effort required. It is not easy. Let us be very clear. But there is no other way. If you don't do it in this Janma, you can come back and do it in the next Janma. But ultimately you have to come to this. So there is no escape from coming to this. And fortunately, in Bhagavad Gita itself, at some point, Arjuna asks, okay, I start in this path and I die before I attain the goal, then do I have to start all over again? So Krishna says, no, you can start from wherever you let off. So you will get a Janma where you are already in a advanced state, From there you can take off. Whichever state. It need not be advanced, it can be somewhere in the middle, or you could have just started off. At least you are in the right path. So next janma you will be conducive for you to proceed in that path. That's why you see sometimes very young people, people say, okay, only when your hair is grey you should start understanding Bhagavad Gita. No, then you will not even probably, at least, okay, some point it is good to start off. So it's not that you should not. But if you start early, when you are young, the mind is also able to understand and absorb in a faster way than what you do when you are older. So our entire objective should be to put in that effort to purify the mind. Along with that, when the knowledge happens, you get that moksha. So the approach should be to get moksha. Of course, it's an individual's choice. Like I said, that basic desire has to come from within. So unless that desire is there, it is not going to help. So the more the intense the desire, the more effort you will put. Because what Krishna is going to say may sound difficult, but it may not be. It is not difficult to follow if we tune ourselves. It requires discipline, which may not be convenient to our way of life. So we look at convenience rather than what is to be done. So lot of discipline is required if we have to attain that. It is not at all easy, but that is the only way. So with that attitude, when we study, at least we will progress towards that. It can be, it need not be, we are not looking at catching Vande Bharat and reaching in a shorter time. Let us go like a passenger itself to begin with, no problem. Let us at least move forward, and if it doesn't happen in this janma, we will continue in the next janma. That's not an issue. So let us look at Bhagavad Gita as something practical which we can follow, and that's what Krishna is going to. In the second chapter, he is going to give a capsulated form what is going to come. Then he is going to enlarge and show it in a very open way, so that you understand even deeper. Because here some things may be a little cryptic, but as it goes, when he is going to expand and show, the cryptic things will become even more clearer. So this is what the goal of Bhagavad Gita is all about. So we started with the 11th verse, which was, as I said, the wise people don't grieve for anything. So the object is to become like a wise man, a pandita who knows the self. And second verse, he said, there was never a time when Krishna was not there, when Arjuna was not there. There was never a time when all the people assembled in the war were not there. And further, there will never be a time when all of these people will not be there. So it gives you the knowledge that you are eternal. To exist, you don't depend on anything. But to exist in a particular form now, in this body, you are dependent. You are here because of your parents. You are dependent on your parents to get this form. They were dependent on their parents. They were dependent. So it goes on and on. But you, to exist, you don't need to depend on anybody, because you are the very existence. So that is what he is trying to convey through the 12th verse. So it gives you because we always have this fear, okay, once I die, what will happen? Will I exist? Will I cease to exist? In what form will I be? It's just a reassurance that you will continue to exist. Even if you die, only the body is going to fall. You will continue to exist. And depending on various factors, you are going to get another body. and that process continues until you decide that, okay, going through all these bodies is going to be very painful, because in this life itself we are going through so much pains and of course pleasure, but more of pain than pleasure. So is there a way to get out of this? So that is what is going to be taught, how to get out of this cycle. So the reassurance is that you are always going to be there. So you don't need any support, any dependence on anything to exist. You are existence, so you can be reassured on that front. Now let us move on to the next verse. Verse number 13. Dehinosmin yatha dehe kaumaram yauvanam jara tatha dehantara praptir dhirastatra na muhyati. Now, for every being, there are 3 stages. So basically, what is being conveyed is, for the indweller of this body, who is called as the Jiva, there is childhood, youth and old age. And after that, continues to the next body. With regard to this, a wise person need not grieve. So this is what is the gist of this verse. So we all go through these stages. We were born, we went through childhood, then after the particular age we became youth. Now some of us are old, we are in the 3rd phase. But what is common in all these 3? It is not that from childhood, when you change to youth, you are a different person. And from youth, you become old, you become a different person. The person remains the same. Only the body goes through the change. So you, the person who is the indweller of this body, doesn't go through any change. You witness your childhood. That is why you are able to recollect what you did in your childhood. Maybe up to the age of 3, what we did we may not remember. That is why we are not able to remember what we did in our past lives. Because even up to the age of 3, we don't remember what we did. So there is we must have gone through millions of lives earlier. You can't even recollect even one of them, because what we did today, what I had for breakfast today, if you ask me 1 week later, definitely I will not remember. After a month, I will not even remember whether I had breakfast this particular day or not. So, but who is the witness to this? You are growing from childhood to youth. There is a person who is witnessing this growth, and that is you. You witness the body becoming youthful. You witness the body becoming old. So you are the witness. You don't change. If you change, how will you be able to understand this? If you also change along with the body, you also become old. Then you will not be able to know that you are changing. So there is a person. That is why we are able to wake up and remember what happened last night. Who remembers the dream? The person who witnessed the dream. Who is that person? Because your body is asleep, in deep sleep state, or in the first stage your body goes to sleep. Your mind is in dream state, your mind is active. But in deep sleep state, even your mind is not active. But when you get up in the morning, you say, okay, I had a good sleep. How do you know? Who was witnessing that you had a good sleep? You, the person. So that person doesn't change even when the body goes through changes every day. And they say once in a few years, all your cells are replaced and you have a new body. But it is not that we are witnessing each and every movement of the body. The body is going through changes. So we went through the childhood, we have gone through the youth, and we are now middle age, we are progressing towards the old age. So the person that is you remains the same. So the person by himself or herself doesn't change. So that is what again is the Atma. So that is where we need to, the difference between that is what we call as Viveka, discrimination. So discriminating between what is permanent and impermanent. So the body is impermanent. We all know that the body is impermanent. It changes from one this thing to other, from childhood to youth, and the body decays naturally. It has to. That is the nature of the body. So it decays and then it goes. So we know it is impermanent, but still we are attached to the body. We take so much of this thing to take care of the body, knowing very well that it is going to perish. So that is why we should know it is impermanent. So the discrimination is understanding the temporary nature of things around us. So the more we understand, the one who understands the difference between the impermanent and the permanent is a wise person. So that is what, again, we are going to understand what is. First we should understand what is impermanent, and if we slowly eliminate all the things that are impermanent, you will find that only you are the permanent one. So that discrimination has to be, so that is what we call as Viveka. So there is no need to have sorrow when you know that the body is impermanent. You very well know, right from the time you remember things, you know the body is impermanent, because there is nobody in the world who is permanent. There are a few Chiranjeevis who are named in our Puranas. Them apart, there is nobody else who is permanent. So the impermanency of the body is known to all of us. This can be extended to everything. Everything that surrounds us is impermanent. So the more you depend on something which is impermanent, the more sorrow you are going to get. So what is the need for sorrow? When you are the one who is the support for all these impermanent things. It is just superimposed. Just to borrow an analogy from a film, if you watch a movie, there are a lot of things happening on the movie. It is constantly changing. But there is one factor which is always constant in the movie, which is not part of the movie, which is the screen. The screen never changes. Whatever is being shown in the movie, the screen never changes. The screen continues to be there. Even if after the movie is over, the screen is there. The screen doesn't change according to what is happening in the movie. If there's a fire in the movie, the screen doesn't get fire. If there is a water shown in the body, the screen doesn't get wet. So this is just an analogy for us to understand there is something which is permanent on which other things are superimposed like a movie. and whatever is happening around us is that movie and you are the screen. So we should take everything like a movie. If you enjoy life like a movie, after the movie is over, that's all, you go back home and forget about it. So same thing, you are the screen. So this is not, I mean, we cannot extend it, stretch this example, but in simple terms, this is how we can understand. So you are like the screen. The screen is not affected by anything that happens in the movie. Without the screen, there cannot be a movie. So the movie is dependent on the screen, but the screen is not dependent on the movie. So that is something we need to understand. Same thing, you are not dependent on external things. External things are dependent on you. So that's what we call as Brahman, which is the total, is dependent on, rather it supports Mithya, which is dependent on Brahman. The impermanent is dependent on the permanent. Without the impermanent, the permanent will still continue to exist. So you are the permanent and you will continue to exist without any of these things, is what the teaching is all about, which we will understand in detail. Further, Krishna is going to give various this thing to understand Atma. What is Atma? He is going to elaborate in different ways. So that is how the method of teaching is. Because you will find that many things are repeated, many things are told again and again. It is just to emphasize those things, because these things have to be embedded in our mind. So the more we repeat, so that is what is the methodology of teaching. And you will find that Krishna, in the next 20 verses, is going to talk about the nature of Atma in different ways. Before from verse number 40 or so, he will start teaching Karma Yoga. How to understand the Atma, you need to do something. So what is to be done, he is going to teach after that, which we will see from the next class.